How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to another Overwatch League discussion video. Today I wanted to talk about the brand new Vancouver Titans. Nothing crazy, nothing super detailed or serious, but just some of the initial things I observed about this team that is essentially a brand new expansion franchise. Let's go over everybody's first impressions of the post-runaway era Vancouver Titans. So, in their first week, they had to take on a bottom-tier team like the Washington Justice and a Florida Mayhem team that is currently on the rise. Nobody really had expectations with the Florida game, but many of us were very interested to see what they could do against a bottom-3 team like the Justice. And while the end result in both of those matches were not what these rookies hoped for, in my opinion, they definitely showed promise. It wasn't consistent, but there most definitely were some flashes. In my personal opinion, everybody had their moments at some point throughout the weekend. Some people did more than others, but everybody did at least one thing that stood out to me in a good way. Let's go over individual performances. Starting with Shredlock, I would say he looked like an average or serviceable Overwatch League level player. He looked pretty okay on the Orisa and Winston. He was by no means spectacular and he was far from flashy, but he wasn't really getting noticed in a lot of negative ways that took away from his performance either. He reminds me of somebody like Rio. He's not necessarily as good as him, but he's a similar type of player. He does his job. He is a reliable main tank who doesn't do a ton to stand out. Besides him looking a little lost on a few engagements here and there and having a few highlight plays on Winston, he was kind of just there for me. It was a B- type of performance. Nothing to write home about, but not a performance you're going to complain about much either. In the future, I would like to see him put himself out there a bit more and play a little smarter too while he's at it. Now for KSA. I gotta give credit where it's due. For somebody who had no previous synergy with anybody on this team, he did a great job. In my opinion, he was arguably the best person on the team who shined the brightest. He showcased a very solid Sigma and Diva. He felt like the hardened veteran on the roster, even though he himself is also a rookie. The way he played gave off this type of vibe for me. He appeared to be a rock. He was a pivotal contributor towards many teamfight wins. And for those who weren't already aware, KSA played these games from Europe. Like with Fielder, this dude is a 200 ping gaming warlord. I know for some people playing on high ping isn't a huge deal, but it obviously makes a difference when you're playing at the highest possible level. The fact that he can make his presence be felt when he's at a disadvantage is undeniably impressive. It's not like he was playing against scrubs either. Gargoyle is a solid off-tank player. In my opinion, he's somewhere in the top 10. The first ever Overwatch League player from Saudi Arabia has put himself on the map and in a big way. Just imagine what this guy could do once he finally makes it to the facility in Vancouver. I am very excited to see what he is capable of when given optimal conditions. Speaking of people playing from Europe, let's transition over to Suna. I don't want to make it sound like I hate the guy or anything, but in my opinion, he had the worst weekend out of any Vancouver player. The French phenom from Eternal Academy didn't do all that much to impress me. It's not that he was awful, it's more that he failed to stand out much. You could really tell that Sombra isn't his strong suit. Stratus showed him who was boss in that Washington game. There were countless times where he got caught off guard or simply just got outplayed. Some of the EMPs were heavily off the mark as well, if I'm going to tell the truth. From what I can recall, he's more of a Tracer and Widow guy, but when you're playing next to Dalton, he's the one you want to have on those heroes, unfortunately. Maybe Sombra just isn't what Suna needs to get it going. If Sombra gets banned in the future or she becomes irrelevant in the current meta, maybe he'll put up a better overall performance next time. That's not to say that it was all bad from Suna though. Between some well-timed hacks and some good EMPs here and there, he managed to pull his weight at certain points throughout both games. But I'm not going to be too hard on the guy after 2 matches. This guy's in foreign territory. Like with KSA and Karkar, he's practically starting from square one again. It might take some time for him to feel more comfortable within this new team environment. He has to rebuild the synergy and find what role he needs to be playing on this team to maximize his potential success as well as that of the team. There's also the ping issue since he too is playing from Europe like with KSA, and the fact that he, like the rest of his teammates, is facing a lot of pressure. It's your first time ever playing in the Overwatch League, and you've been assigned to a team that was publicly announced the day before game day. That's tough for any player to face, regardless of their background. But it's okay. If Sombra proves to be relevant again, then Suna has a better chance to impress while doing so against prolific Sombra players like Dante and Hisu. Hopefully he has a more dominant showing in at least one of these matchups. As for his DPS counterpart Dalton, I for one thought he did a decent job. I thought his Tracer was pretty clean actually. He had some good pulse bombs, and I was really liking his ability to clean up kills. He was by no means dominating though. He showed some good explosiveness, but it was not like what we saw from him back on Second Wind. But at the end of the day, that's to be expected. The competition is far greater now, and it's going to take some time to adjust and learn the tendencies of certain players and teams. The Mayhem game in particular really showed this. Yaki and BQB were running circles around him. Yaki had one of the most dominant Tracer performances we've had in recent memory, and I vividly remember Dalton getting bested in the Widow battle against BQB. It was a hard-fought battle, but he unfortunately was on the losing end of it. But that's okay. He's a brand new rookie who has been here for a week. There's a whole season ahead of him to hone his skills. And you know what? Florida has some tough DPS. That's a difficult game to play in your first week. On the bright side, he showed some of that promise that made him look like an Overwatch League caliber player back in the day when he was still in contenders. And he kind of turned up in the Washington game. He had a very good performance in a super close game. Doing that in your first game when your team is kind of just thrown together is something to be proud of. Now for the final stretch. Let's talk about the support line. So overall, my opinions are fairly similar for both Karkar and Rolf. They played okay. It's the same as Shredlock. They had moderately average performances. For Rolf, the thing that kept him from having a solid weekend for me was him simply not doing enough to impress me. While there were a few moments, he could have used a few more of those wow factor moments. Overall though, not too much to complain about with Rolf. For all these years, I've always liked the way he played Zenyatta, and Week 14 showed me there's no reason to think any differently. With Karkar, on the other hand, there was a bit more to nitpick about. What I didn't love about Karkar was his sound barrier usage. I noticed it a few different times where the timing felt off. I believe there was this one occasion on Temple of Anubis where he used it too early. In a Sombra Lucio meta, the Lucio player needs to stay out of sight lines and wait for the enemy to drop EMP. It's a game of cat and mouse that you have to win as the Lucio player if your team wants a better chance of living through EMP. But Karkar let that thing fly as Stratus finished charging his ult. While it is true that Shredlock was the only person caught by the EMP, the guy was practically a sitting duck. Winston with no leap or bubble is going to get insta-melted every time. And that's exactly what happened. The Justice focused him down even with a sound barrier on him. If Karkar had waited out the EMP, then used the sound barrier, there was a good chance Shredlock could have survived or at least been in that fight for longer. And on the second point of 2 CP, having a member of the attacking team go down first really hurts your chances of winning that fight because of spawn advantages and all. Either there was poor ult tracking in the Vancouver comms, or Karkar made a silly mistake. Either way, that's a problem that needs to be fixed. With time, I'm assuming that'll get a lot better though. You just need some better communication and decision making, and like with everybody else on the team, I'll vouch for Karkar with some excuses. For one, it's been a month and a half since he's played for a team, so surely he had to shake off some of the rust. But also, building up solid communication and synergy doesn't just happen overnight, especially when you have no previous experience with any of the people you're working with. Him and the boys just need to keep on grinding so they can iron out some of those support miscues they've been having. So that's my general opinion for how everybody did individually. But how about from a team aspect? Well, to be brutally and stupidly honest, they played like a team that was literally formed a week or two ago. And guess what? That's exactly what they are. As far as I'm concerned, they're progressing at a pretty normal rate. This is around where they should be as a team right now. Their synergy was a little underwhelming, and the level of coordination isn't quite where it needs to be. But I know for a fact that will get a lot better with time. As these guys get to know each other better, they'll start to be more on the same page. But it's not like they played like total trash, you know? It could have been a lot worse. The fact that they were able to take a map off a team that has been practicing with one another for like half a year now is a noteworthy achievement. And all the maps in general were pretty competitive. I don't care if it is the Washington Justice. They still beat a team that was playing with each other for far longer. They even managed to capitalize on some slip-ups from the Florida Mayhem, leading to a few of the maps being at least kind of back and forth. And the good news is that they can only get better from here. There is a lot of room for improvement, and since they're starting from the ground up, there's not much of a chance for a regression unless things suddenly go way downhill for some reason. It might not be anytime soon, but you will start to notice drastic improvements as the season progresses. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, only half of this roster has any previous synergy with one another. It's going to take some time to build up that chemistry. As these players exert themselves, both from the individual and team aspect, these guys will slowly but surely not be taken so lightly anymore. For the time being though, they are probably a bottom 2 team in the league. But when your entire team consists of rookies who have only been together for a few short weeks, there is going to be hardships ahead of you. You gotta make your way up the food chain. The good news though is that there's really no pressure on them. The expectations for these guys aren't crazy high. They can just do their thing and see what happens. If you're a Vancouver fan and you're watching this, it's important to be patient. I've seen a lot of people give this roster hate, and frankly, I find it ridiculous. People need to understand that you can't compare these guys to Runaway. Their ceilings are nowhere near as high, but that does not, I repeat, that does not mean they can't ever be competitive. So many players on this roster are very promising. These guys already understand they have big shoes to fill in. Don't put too much pressure on them. Once they start to piece it all together, they should start winning some games here and there. But keep in mind that it's not going to happen instantly. However, they are already off to a pretty good start, so maybe that competitive edge they're capable of showcasing in the future will be arriving quicker than we anticipated. I know it can be hard to stay faithful after everything that has gone down, but give these guys a chance. Let's continue to monitor their progress over these next couple of months. After that window is passed, you're free to judge them in whichever way you want. But until then, I advise everybody watching this to evaluate them based on a week-to-week performance for the time being. Well, that's pretty much going to do it. Those are my first impressions on the new look Vancouver Titans. There were some things I liked and some things I didn't. Nothing too serious though. These are some minor thoughts at the end of the day. I'm not trying to go all out on a new team with little experience being in the league and just playing with each other in general for that matter. Now I turn things over to you. What are your initial thoughts on the brand new Vancouver Titans roster after watching them play? Let me know down in the comment section, and if you enjoyed this video, it would mean a lot if you could hit that like button and subscribe if you're new around here. While you're at it, consider joining my Discord, following me on Twitter, or becoming a channel member if you're looking to go above and beyond with support. And as always, thanks so much for watching this video, I really do appreciate it, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.